Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Life Less Perfect podcast. I'm your host, Shauna G, and I'm really super excited today. I know I say that every episode, but I really feel privileged to welcome to this conversation my new friend, Dan King. Dan is a spiritual conduit, a coach, author, and international speaker who has been guiding people towards their best life for over 13 years. Now, a bit of a warning out there to some of my listeners. Dan is a colorful speaker. He speaks my vernacular personally, but if you're afraid of a few F-bombs, maybe this isn't for you. Or maybe it is. Maybe there's something for you to see why that's confronting for you. But Dan is known as a pioneer of spirituality with an edge. And he's been dubbed the rated R avatar. So again, there might be a few F-bombs in this episode. But Dan truly has an unapologetic, controversial, and contemporary delivery that oozes authenticity. I can definitely speak to that. Dan commands attention and ultimately transforms the lives of those who experience his work. He has been called the revolutionary force in the conscious living movement and a spiritual rock star. And his fresh and brash approach to life and spirituality merges inspiration, enlightenment, and entertainment, while Dan reveals the answers to life's big questions. So I'm super excited once again to introduce you to my new friend, Dan King. Dan, welcome to Life Less Perfect.
Thanks so much for having me, Sean. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, so we were chatting a little bit just before we hit record, and I'm really super curious to hear a little bit about some of your story. Like, how did you get to be this amazing spiritual conduit, which I love that term, by the way. And so maybe give us a little bit of a backstory about how this all sort of started for you.
Sure. And first off, thank you for calling me amazing. I rarely take credit, or if ever, for the work I do. It's all spirit. But the only thing I take credit for, the only part rather I take credit for, is having the balls to do it in a world that is afraid of this shit, really. But thank you for your kind words. But it really is all spirit. Well, it started in 2006, I believe, after some pretty crazy things that happened to me. Essentially, I mean, I love to tell the story, but it would take forever. So essentially, my physical world fell apart around me in my mid-20s, but that opened up the intangible world, so to speak. And I was sitting at an Earl's restaurant in Winnipeg, 2006, with a buddy of mine, and my waitress's dead father came through for her out of the blue. And from that day on, it just completely took on a life of its own. Since then, it's really gotten down to, and I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with the term medium, but I prefer not to go with that term because it's so much more than talking to loved ones or anybody that has passed over, spirit guides, whoever. But it's really come down to me being guided in helping people uncover their core traumas and then guiding them in how to heal it, because it's all about authenticity at the end of the day. And our trauma and the belief structures that get embedded into us as a result, and how we think we need to live and act in order to protect ourselves from those traumas, number one, but also in ways to how we've been taught that we need to do or be more, to be worthy of love. That's what needs to be removed in order for anybody to be their authentic self. And in order to be your authentic self, you got to love yourself to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
So with that trauma in the way, there's no self-love, a huge lack of self-worth. So if you don't like or love who you are, how the hell are you going to be who you are? How the hell are you going to get what you're here to get, or experience what you're here to experience in the highest way possible? And that's what we all deserve, our highest good.
Yeah.
So that's really what it's all about, is healing trauma, unbecoming who we never truly were so that we can become who we truly are. And it's not about law of attraction. This law of attraction shit, man, and how it's been presented, it's really no different than how God's been presented through religion in such a bullshit way.
Hmm.
So, we're familiar with The Secret, right? And
Yeah.
how we're taught, and most teachers teach it in this sense, right? Where you just envision and you feel it and it'll come up. That's not how that shit works, man. I mean, here's a secret about The Secret. The Secret is full of shit. It played to instant gratification, the ego desires.
Yeah.
Because again, it comes down to knowing who you are, your authentic self. Until you know who you are, how the fuck are you going to know what you truly want?
Exactly.
Right? So it's not about sitting there envisioning the Ferrari or whatever you think is going to get you more worth or more acceptance externally from you or from others. It breaks down to this. It's be who you're here to be. You'll do what you're here to do. You'll get what you're here to get. So it really should be called the law of alignment, because it's all alignment. And even manifestation. Fuck manifestation, man. So many of us are putting so much time and energy into manifesting. And it's such an egoic approach to life.
Mm.
Your soul has set up, your soul knew what the fuck he was coming to do here a long time before it even came here. So the stage is set, so to speak. And that doesn't mean there's not an element of choice. There's a huge element of choice. But the major things you're here to go through are preset because they're so integral to your path, to your growing, to becoming who you're here to be so you can do what you're here to do. So it's always about alignment. Everything's already out there. Everything you need or don't want is in existence. It's about how we fundamentally feel about ourselves unconsciously or subconsciously. That's what's aligning us with our experiences. That's what's creating our reality. And so if anybody listening, you're caught in those cyclical experiences that you just fuck are done with and you don't want, it's not God punishing you. It's not creator, being mean or anything like that. We're simply not getting the lesson embedded in the experience. And
Oh,
so we need to keep aligning with those same typical experiences until we get the lesson. Once you get the lesson, you no longer need the teacher. Every experience is simply a teacher. Even the biggest assholes in our lives are our best teachers because they're teaching us at the very least what we don't deserve so we can come to learn what we do. So it's about alignment. Fuck manifestation, fuck law of attraction. Just heal your trauma so you can love who you are, so you can be who you are and get what you're here to experience in the highest way possible. It's not easy, but it really is that fucking simple.
okay, Dan, I'm going to stop you here, and not because I want to
All right.
interrupt you, brother.
Well, I was stopping anyway. I realized the spirit was getting me on a fucking tangent there. So
I
a
love
good
the
tangent though.
tangent.
It felt good. It felt good, but
Oh,
yeah.
I was feeling the energy too. I'm just like, yeah, but I want to speak into this because I've spoken to
Mm.
it before, as my audience will know. I say this often that life is really just reflecting back to us. We're sort of like little antennas running around and we're attracting what we're attracting because that's where we're at. And like you said, it's the lessons. I know I used to sort of sit in this victimhood and, oh, I'm an empath and I keep attracting narcissistic personalities. Well, it finally took a really, really good
You and
one
I both, sister. You and I both.
to help me figure out, well, who better to reflect how I wasn't loving myself, right? Than
Well,
this narcissistic personality. And so I have nothing but gratitude in my heart for this beautiful soul who came into my life to show me that and teach me that,
mm-hmm,
keep me on the
mm-hmm.
path, you know?
Yeah, good on you. Yeah. And we were kind of touched on this before we hopped on here. That's so important to find that gratitude through realizing the divine purpose.
Yes.
Because if we don't, we're going to bind ourselves to that shit. Anything we judge or hold resentment towards or whatever, we're perpetuating, we're attaching ourselves to, whether we want to or not.
So,
The only way to really change something is to accept it as it is.
mm,
And again, it's through these simple reminders of some fundamental shit that everything is divinely unfolding at all times.
mm,
Everything is as it is meant to be that shows up in front of us to teach us whatever is there to, or whatever we're there to learn, rather. And
mhm.
until we find the why behind the what, as I like to call it, we're going to keep aligning with that same shit.
Yeah.
And another point Spirit wants me to touch on, because a lot of, especially people who have been doing the spiritual thing for a while, they get pissed off when I call out the bullshit behind manifestation. So Spirit has me respond with this. Is a toddler who's being abused, did they fucking manifest that based on their beliefs? Of course not. They just fucking got here. They don't have enough of a track record or enough of a developed fucking brain, really, to have thought processes that are going to be attracting shit they don't want. So to say that we're all just manifesting, we're bringing all this shit on ourselves, yeah, that's true because the soul chose it before coming here.
Yeah.
But we can't put that on a 2-year-old who's getting neglected in their bedroom all the time because mom's getting shit faced and dad's out at the bar getting laid. That can't be the 2-year-old fucking manifesting that. That's the soul who chose to have shitty parents, to have self-love robbed away from them so they can inevitably build it for themselves. Then no one gave it to them, no one can take it away.
Yeah.
Right?
Dan, do we learn through opposites? Is that's what's happening for us?
Oh, that's a beautifully simplified way to put what I've talked about for years. Absolutely. We have to go through who we're not to remember who we are. We have to go through what we don't like to remember what we do. Right? We're in the world of duality. We have to forget in order to remember. That's literally what this human experience is. Our soul takes on an amnesia, so to speak, so we can fully dive into this human experience, soak it all up, get everything we're intended to get out of it, go through the pain, go through the illusion, take on the trauma, and then inevitably, hopefully one day we get that awakening, as we like to call it, And then we start piecing it all together as to why it all had to happen. And we see the good, the God in everything eventually, because God is in fucking everything. And God isn't some white dude above the clouds like a glorified Santa Claus, judging everybody, putting some people on the ultimate nice list of heaven, eternal, whatever, and others on the ultimate naughty list of eternal damnation. Because that's essentially what the religious God we've been given is. It's no different than how we control our children from November to December 25th every year with holding Santa over their heads, right? But there is no all-knowing entity that would ever send any of its creations to a burning pit of hell run by a big red dude with horns for all eternity. There's no learning in that.
Because or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, or had sex before marriage. Shit,
Yeah.
if sex before marriage gets into us into hell, we're all going to heaven anyway. There's no more fucking room in hell. There's no vacancies, right? But it's extremely useful in controlling people.
You
I mean,
bet.
look how it works with our kids, right? Well, they've done the same thing to humanity through that religious God concept. But God created karma. That's a better way to learn. You having done unto you what you've done unto others. If you've done some shitty things, having it done to you so you know what it feels like, that's a great way to learn, to shift, to expand, you
And his
know?
golden thread through every single religion on the planet, right? That's
It
one
is.
consistency, right?
Heavenly rewards for doing what you're told. That's
Yeah,
essentially what religion is built on.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I am moving more towards sovereignty, and
Mm.
whatever feels sovereign to me is what works for me. And it's not in judgment of anyone who's on that particular path. I
Oh, of
went
course not. No, no, no.
No, I went down that path myself. I mean, I was actually baptized a Christian at the age of 40, and I will
Mm.
state too, I am
Wow.
a believer of Christ. I am a firm believer.
So am I, man. So am I. Jesus was real. It's just other humans came along after and fucked with the message. I mean, Jesus Christ was very real. He would have said a lot of things, but I died for you, sinner. You owe me would never have been one of them.
One of our brothers is out there. I call him the preacher of our times. His name is Aaron Abke, and he's fantastic. He's literally teaching the same thing that he never did say, declare me as your Lord and Savior, and that's the only way you will get to heaven. Like, no,
Oh,
he'd
of
be
course
tearing
not.
down some temple walls right now, I think, if he were to come
Oh,
back.
he'd be tearing a lot of shit up right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
He'd be flipping more tables than ever. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then CNN would paint him as a whatever, to discredit him like they do all of those spreading the truth on a mass scale.
Oh, so true. So
And they'd
true.
probably kill him off like they do for most people too. And that's what I love about the time we're in now. There's too many of us here all at once. They
Yeah.
can't take us all out, man. They just can't. And people are waking up, man. People are waking up at an unstoppable exponential rate. And as fucky as it is, and it's going to get more fucky before it gets better, I think it's still perfectly fucky, as we were talking about earlier. I mean, life's supposed to be fucked up, but it's perfectly fucked up in the sense that there's always a purpose to it all. It's not about good or bad. People ask me a lot, well, why does God allow bad things? There's no such thing, really. It's all necessity for growth. That's it. It's whatever needs to happen for the intended ascension to happen.
Um,
And sometimes that means some shitty things need to go down for some good things to come up.
exactly. And oftentimes it's to steer you towards your purpose. I mean, it's exactly what happened.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah. And
in my personal sort of world, I mean, again, a lot of childhood trauma, and I've spoke about this openly on the podcast before, that really had me completely blocked throat chakra, like not feeling seen, not feeling heard. And moving towards even doing this podcast was a big deal for me, right? Like, because it really is about using my voice, you
well,
know.
you see, if you don't mind, you seem like a natural at it. So
Oh,
well
well,
done,
you're
sister.
very kind. Thank you. It
No, I'm
feels,
very honest. I'm not very kind. Well, I'm kind in my intentions. In my approach, I'm not sometimes. So I'm being very honest, but I'm
thank,
glad that's kind.
I appreciate it.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it really is about stepping into authenticity and also creating a space for people to do the same, right? And to talk about our difficult times, our adversities that we've been through so that we can share, so we can help each other move out
Yeah.
of that space and more into who we are authentically meant to step into being. So tell me, Dan, how do you work with clients? It's a really cool story. And I mean, you could get into more of it if you want, but I'm curious, like when that first happened to you with that waitress, when this voice kind of came into you, was it a
Yeah.
voice? Like, was it a picture?
I had a vision of the man in my third eye at first, and then I kept hearing, and I'll never forget the name because the first time it happened, Richard, 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 all over and over and over again. And I felt like someone just like smacked me in the back of the head. I had to blurt out who was Richard.
Wow.
And she told me who it was, and as soon as she validated who it was, then he just started to tell me a bunch of things, and the poor girl ended up bawling at the table and needing to run to the back. And it was lunch hour, so it was busy at Earl's. But yeah, it happened. Spirit gets to us when it's time.
So
It's
how did you unpack that? Because I think for a lot of people, that would be like, what the fuck? Like, what?
Yeah, it was definitely a what the fuck moment. I'll never forget. She said to me, she's like, "You're freaking me out right now." And I remember my response was, "I'm freaking you out. I'm talking to your dead fucking dad right now."
Thinking myself,
Like,
right?
I'm tripping balls myself over here. But with that said, that it kind of unpacked itself. It was almost too natural to me. And I was brought up Catholic, not in a crazy way, thankfully. Thank you, mom and dad, who have passed over the last 10 years or so. But I always had an open mind. I'd had a few experiences with some like carnival type psychics that were definitely full of shit, but I still had an open mind. And I had a few spiritual experiences leading up to it, things flying off the counter in front of me, lights flickering. I had been referred to a local medium as a result of what I was experiencing, and she just blew me away. And she was just someone like you or I. I think she had a real estate company at the time and just did these readings out of her real estate office. But the woman had me in tears for over an hour. She was actually from Calgary too,
Mm.
originally. I moved back there after before she has since passed too. But yeah, it just kind of broke me wide open. The way I write it in the first book in the Soulgasm series is a light switch. I walked out of that office day and a light switch had been turned on inside of me, and I needed to know more about this stuff. So I was shown more about this stuff very quickly, directly, all up in my fucking face. And my life's never been the same since, but I wouldn't change an ounce of it, especially losing my parents. I don't know how I would have handled that
Mm.
had I not known what I know at this point. I don't know how I would have handled any of my life, actually, from then on in if I didn't know what I know.
Yeah. So obviously that then moved you into understanding that as energetic beings, life doesn't end when we leave the meat suit, so to say.
God, no. That's what I
Um,
call it too. I love it. Yeah, meat suit.
yeah. And that, I don't know about you. So I've lost someone actually quite recently that was quite a traumatic experience, but it,
Sure.
it blew my heart so wide open that it led me to really fully start to explore, life after life, so to speak. I started sort of watching all of these NDE experiences. I've watched, I don't know, probably 1,000 of them. And I've read lots of books about it. And it was just such a comfort to me at the time. And, I had always known and felt the sense that this isn't all there is, and that there was something else after. But that experience really had me feel it in a very deep way. And so I became really interested in this stuff. And so I love that you're out here speaking to people and doing this work because I think it helps allay such a deep fear. If anything taught us how trapped in fear we are of dying and death and all of that, it was the whole, COVID experience. Am I right? Um, you know,
Yeah, that's what they
I,
tried to do at least.
yeah, and I think in actual fact, what you said, what has happened is a real awakening for a lot of people.
Oh,
So
COVID was the worst thing they ever tried to pull.
yeah.
Yeah, it was so ridiculous after a while that even Stevie Wonder could essentially see what the fuck was going on. I mean, cognitive dissonance is a very powerful thing.
Mm.
But I don't think at this point I can't fathom many people not at least being like, okay, like asking some questions at least, But yeah, it played a big part in the next wave of awakening. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The
And I
joke's
love
on
it.
you, fuckers.
And I love what's kind of going on in the world right now too. I know, and all politics aside, I don't like to get into politics there. I like to
Oh
actually
God.
talk about what actually brings us together and makes us the same, not what divides us. But it's really interesting what's going on. And I think, love or hate, whatever is going on, I think it's the lid is coming off of a bunch of things right now. You
Yeah,
got
no, it
to
absolutely
make
is.
some popcorn and take it all in.
That's what I always say. Get your popcorn, man. I use that GIF or GIF or whatever they're called. I still don't know how to really say that. Action from the Thriller video, eating his popcorn. I use that all the time, man, and especially in the world we're in.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, yeah. It's and just to speak to politics, not to get into it, I'm right there with you, because just like politics itself, it's a big waste of fucking time to talk about it if you're going to go by what we're shown at least through the media.
Yeah.
But if there's one thing I want people to know, I mean, because there's even like people who are aware or so to speak aware, and they think Trump's the savior and stuff. Look, right wing or left wing, it's the same fucking bird, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
What a great way to
it,
put it. Same bird. Yeah.
well, and it's a great metaphor, I think, because yeah, that's what it is. It's the same entity with perceived opposition,
Mm.
all working towards the same goal of divide and conquer, and distraction and fear and all this bullshit hoopla, right? Yeah.
There is
If
one,
it's on the TV right now, it's not truth. It's that
yeah.
simple.
Also, I would say pay attention to who they're vilifying, and because there's one man out there that I really deeply respect, and that's Robert F. Kennedy. And I think that he's being really vilified, and they're trying to take him down
Yeah.
because he is out there trying to expose the truth, I think.
Yeah, I feel that too. Oh, there's a few out there doing it, but if
Yeah.
they're being allowed to, they're not really doing
So interesting times to be alive for sure. For sure.
it. Yeah, you could say that. Well, I
Like,
mean, that's why so many souls have incarnated. We're literally living in the most, I don't even know what word to give to it, the most interesting time in human history, the biggest shift in human history.
I,
Absolutely. And it's happening already. They know it's happening. That's why they're just scrambling. They know the game is done. All they can do is create as much bullshit and chaos on the way out because they feed off of that shit. And that which it prays to, they believe feeds off of that shit too.
and let's get into that a little bit because that are the lower sort of frequency vibrations of fear. Am I right?
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
Where they want to keep us. So I'm curious, were you into like meditation or anything? I know you were raised Catholic, but were you doing any sort of spiritual practices?
Oh, God, no. Just trying to be as best human as I could be. That's it,
Yeah.
man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And it found me. That's for sure.
So how do you then work with clients? What's your medicine that you're sort of delivering now?
Well, it comes down to essentially, and look, a lot of things can happen. Whatever is necessary in a session will happen. Loved ones can come through, guides, whoever. But essentially, spirit guides me in rooting, exposing the core traumas in somebody, because again, that's the one thing in the way of them truly living, being their true selves, is self-love and self-worth and being authentic. So again, so they can be who they're here to be, to do what they're here to do, to get what they're here to get. But the medicine is truth, authenticity, and ultimately love and understanding. That's what we all need, man, in this world.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, truth, love, and authenticity, I guess, would be the medicine. But again, it's all spirit. I just deliver it in a badass way.
Nice. So I know you're on tour right now. Can we talk about that
I,
a little bit? And
yeah, please. Yeah. You're located in Calgary, correct?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So Calgary just got added to this tour, which is March 10th at the Holiday Inn Calgary South Conference Center. But I'm loving this tour. I love all my tours, but my typical format is, 2 to 3 hour event in a bigger theater or bigger conference room, couple hundred people. I'll do a channel talk for the first half of the event, channel talk meaning for the group. So things that relate to all of us collectively that we all need to know. Then in the second half of the show, we do the Q&A where it's basically first come, first serve, and I get to as many people as I can before the night's up. This
Mhm.
one I'm calling Intimate with the Infinite because we're doing it in cool, vibey kind of pubs, lounges, cafes. I'm capping it at 30 people because the most special part about this format is I'm guaranteeing everybody in the audience a reading. So what
Nice.
that means is you either have a specific question you can ask, or you say, Dan, what does Spirit have for me? And I always love the readings portions because it's not just the person who the message are for that it actually relates to, that can learn from it and grow from it, right? Everybody in the room can learn from everybody else's readings. And it just creates and reminds us of that connectedness that we have. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all going through the same shit in our own way, trying to get to the same place in our own way. I mean, pain feels the same. No matter what brings it to us, pain feels the same. And so does healing, right? Freedom is essentially what we're all looking for. Peace is what we're all looking for. And to speak on that, Spirit wants to say, especially when we're intending our desires, try to focus on the essence of what you want, not the physical representation of what you think will bring it to you. Because everything we want is a means to an end, and the means to the end is peace. That's the end we're looking for, is peace. And we go to all these, the ego is very fucking tricky and very convincing and is great at warping reality in terms of what we think we need in order to be at peace. So I always urge people to focus on Not so much what you think will bring it to you, just focus on what you want. Intend peace. Intend peace. And when you ask for peace or patience or anything, know that you're not just going to fucking get it. Source, creator, whatever name you want to give to the intelligence behind life, God, if you want to call it that, it's going to bring you experiences that will allow you to learn it for your damn self, to cultivate it for yourself. Because that's the work, the integration, like we were talking about before we came on here. That's the work. You can go to all the fucking seminars you want. You can come to all the sessions with Dan King all you want. But if you're not integrating it outside of that office or that conference room or theater, it ain't going to do shit. The real work happens out there in the human experience, where experiences come to us, where our ability to integrate, or we're asked to invoke and integrate what we've learned. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of knowledge, and knowledge is not power. It's easy to get knowledge. You pick up a fucking book, I got some knowledge. You watch a Netflix special, you got some knowledge. Wisdom is power, which is the ability to know what to do with the knowledge that we acquire.
And can we add maybe its embodiment of that power?
Well, that's, yeah, I mean, wisdom is the embodiment of that power. Absolutely.
There's a knowing, and then there's a feeling and a doing, as a result.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then it's about living it, being it. Yeah.
Exactly. And I talk about this often with my clients too. It's like, how do you integrate this is every time you're triggered, right?
Well, and the triggers are our biggest gifts.
Exactly.
So maybe judge triggers, but triggers are not a bad thing. They're simply an indication of what's left to be healed. And nothing outside of you triggers you. The trauma is what triggers the unhealed trauma still living inside of us. That's always looking for an evidence of more trauma so we can protect ourselves from it. That's the fucking trigger, not the person outside of you. Essentially, you could have had an abusive partner who sneezed before they beat your ass. If you're with a new partner who sneezes, right away, your unconscious goes into that experience. You're seeing the past in the present, and you will respond that way. They could be the best partner in the world, but if they trigger that, all of a sudden they become that worst person, and you'll push them away. And honestly, if you've never experienced love and love shows up, you'll push that away too, simply because it's unfamiliar. The ego, the human part of us that needs to identify and know so it can cope, it loves familiarity, even if it's fucking toxic as hell. At least it knows how to handle it. So it will stay in familiar situations to its detriment, because there's a fucked up comfort to that. So anybody afraid of the unknown out there, going through shitty knowns, dive into the unknown, because what you should be afraid of is not the unknown. You should be scared shitless of things keeping on the way they're keeping on. All right? If your known fucking sucks, go into the unknown. I promise you, it's at the very least better.
Yeah. Exactly. And I can speak to that from my own, like we were talking earlier, relationship experiences, and I'm still single now because I'm integrating this past pain from a couple years ago. And again, it was weird for me when I first started to attract men who weren't fucked up.
Yeah.
They were a little boring. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, where's the
toxicity?
Exactly. Because that's what I grew up, that's what I knew. My dad was an abusive alcoholic, and that was what the masculine represented to me. And so men who were peaceful and calm and, kind were boring. And now I'm saying, bring that to me now.
No, I hear you. I
Mhm.
hear you.
So, Dan, now I know we didn't talk about this before, but would you be
Okay, we
open
can talk about anything.
doing something with me? Are you open to that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll do it kind of like I would do it at an intimate with the infinite.
Okay. Yeah, just so our audience can maybe get an idea of what
For
we
sure.
like.
For
Yeah.
sure.
And selfishly, for me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's not selfish, it's self-love. You deserve to receive too, Sean. All good. Your guides want to talk about kind of the relationship thing you were just speaking on.
Mm.
They're saying what's ideal for you is because of that, what you're describing is boring for you. You don't want too vanilla. That's not you. So you want somebody that maybe does get pissed off if things are not right in the world, or if they're getting attacked or whatever. They know how to defend themselves. They might be a bit loud, whatever, but it's not abusive per se,
No.
right? And I don't think you would ever push somebody to that point anyway of just losing the ship. But you're going to align with somebody that has, it's passion is what you're looking for. They
Mm.
just gave me the word passion. They even showed the color red. Okay, which to me represents that passion.
Yeah.
Um, but they also want you, I think you said it's been a few years, but you got a little bit of time left to really fall in love with you, so to speak, and build your visions.
Yeah.
Because there's a part of you that I don't know what's the word they want me to use here. You love connection, okay? And so in a relationship dynamic, when you commit yourself to somebody, there's no way you're not going to give your time and energy in a very sacred way. So if the right person, if that person came into your life right now, you could be easily distracted at a time where you shouldn't be distracted. It's about being, as you want to call it, selfish right now, but really it's self-love. So how your soul has lined this out is that you're timing this so you have enough time on your own, not alone or lonely, on your own to build more of your foundation, for lack of a better term, right? Because as you're going through that, they say you're going to come more and more into yourself. You're going to become more confident, more accepting of self, more seeing, holy fuck, I am the greatness that I'm told I am. Right. And because then and only then, because what that's doing is cultivating a higher level of self love for you, then that lucky dude can come in because you will have enough awareness of what you need and what you deserve, um, um, especially in terms of the love you deserve. And you need someone to be able to fucking listen to you. You've had experiences where it's like you're talking to a goddamn wall. Essentially, that's on you. You took on projects, like boys and men's bodies, right? But then, that's what dad was, is what they're saying. So all you were doing is looking for dad's love. And then unconsciously, that vibration was the same in these dudes, you know? But through that, though, it was a continuation of the lesson that dad was the teacher for,
Yeah.
right? All what you don't deserve. Just because dad's doing his thing, dealing with his trauma in a toxic way, which took him away from you in a lot of ways, that was not indicative of what Shauna deserved. It was indicative of what dad was able to give and the state of mind and state of consciousness dad was in, right? And that's a very powerful lesson to learn. The whole concept that how other people treat us is very rarely about us at all. We don't see the world as it necessarily is. We see the world through the filter of our own experiences. So well done on taking that ball and running with it. And you need to stick with this kind of thing, media. It's almost like you got like a truthful talk show host vibe to you, like not some Oprah bullshit. Authentic, well-intentioned, pure in your intention, sacred in your intentions, and creating platforms to get the message out. You have your own message as well, they say, which those platforms are used for. But it's really, there's this vibe of being an outlet for truth speakers to get to the truth seekers. Oh, I love how they put that. That was cool. So yeah, that's the main message. Surrender in. They literally show me a big fucking recliner and it's made in light. And it's like, just sink into where you're at right now and keep focusing all on your shit.
Yeah.
Because you were taught, I think even by mom, you were taught that focusing on yourself is selfish.
Yeah.
And it's just not. It's necessary.
Yeah.
If you're not, we're only as good to others as we can give to ourselves, right? If we only when we put the timing in, or the time and effort and work into unbecoming who we're not, so we can become who we are. That's how we can be the best for the world too, and the only way, really. So be selfish, if that's what we need to call it for Shauna right now. Be selfish as fuck for the next little bit.
Nice. Love that. I really felt called and pulled into doing this work. Like they kind of pulled me by the hair because I wasn't super, I don't love this. I'm more someone who likes to be a little bit behind the scenes and,
God
quietly.
damn, you should not be. Fuck that.
Uh,
Well, that's what you were taught, though. You were
I know.
taught to speak when spoken to, kind of thing.
Yeah. Children are to
Um,
be seen and not heard. Yeah.
that's what I was trying to go for. Thank you. But fuck no. I mean, again, Stevie Wonder could see you're built for this shit. So keep
No.
doing what you're doing. And there's a lot of different arms they're showing me to this. So I don't know if you already have a bunch of visions and ideas on. It's like it's got an empire type of vibe to it. Okay,
Wow.
there's different like channels is the word they're using.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
interesting because my day-to-day life is a functional medicine practice, and yeah, so
Very
help
cool.
people heal in a natural way.
Well, and that brings so much wisdom to you and your show, though, and then you have an understanding of your guests,
Yeah,
right? So that everything works in beautiful tandem because you know what right questions to ask or right information to add to their answers that give people a more all-encompassing experience that they can walk away from your show with, after listening to it, and
yeah,
hopefully integrate that shit.
exactly.
Hopefully. Like today I feel like spirits are really harping on like people, we really need to realize that as much as the dopamine kick in a seminar or a private session feels great, and as much as shadow work, as we like to call it, doesn't feel great, it's fucking necessary. You got to go through the darkness to get through the light. Think of what a rose seed, the dirt and darkness it has to push through
Mm,
before it blooms into what it's intended to be, right? Um, and we need the darkness to bring our light to. Why the fuck would we be here anyways? Right? You don't bring light to light. It's fucking stupid. Right? We bring light to darkness from our own trauma, which is darkness. And when I say darkness, I don't necessarily mean evil. I just mean low vibrational shit.
yeah.
Fear, anger, sadness, resentment, whatever has happened to us. That's what needs our light. And then when we do that for ourselves, we can do it externally for our brothers and sisters in the world in general.
Thank you for just literally putting a voice to what this whole podcast is about. That's exactly.
Again, it's all on spirit, but you're welcome.
Yeah, because it literally, that's what this is about. So when we share our own adversities and what we've been through and how we've come out the other side, and more importantly, like you said, what they taught us and how it's changed us is how it's helped us grow, how it's helped us evolve, and how we can now sort of share that medicine with our brothers and sisters. Exactly what you just said. Yeah,
Well,
spot
and that's the beautiful thing about what we're talking about.
on.
And
Mhm.
anything in this topic of spirituality, that's a very general term, but let's use that because we need something to reference in our human form. This is not some fucking theology. This is not some nursery rhyme bullshit that is designed to, again, divide, conquer, control. The most beautiful thing about this is the proof of this is in everybody's fucking life if they care to look.
Exactly.
Literally, you can look at any experience, and ideally the most fucked up experiences, and if you look long and deep enough, you will absolutely, without a doubt, extract the good that came out of it, which is the God that came out of it, the intended lesson, the ascension, the growth, the inevitable self-love that comes from it. Right? It's if we look, the proof is right there. We don't have to depend on some fucking dudes from 3,000 years ago to
No.
tell us what life's about, right? It's right there if we care to look. If we get our head out of our ass and our eyes off the TV and go within. And if we stop looking outside of ourselves for our validation,
Mm.
because that's what the ego is. It all it relates to is physicality, these meat suits, as you perfectly called them, and anything outside of us. We've even taught the ego eats up the idea that God's outside of us. That's why we're so susceptible to this shit. So we're always in this quest to look for what we need and everywhere that it's fucking not,
Mm.
and it's all within. Jesus even said, God literally is within you.
Yeah.
God is you. That really makes some people uncomfortable. We are God, and science essentially proves it.
Yeah.
Science has proven to us that and shown us that everything in existence is energy, that if we had the proper microscope, nothing is separate, we're all connected, and that everything has to have an origin, obviously. So if everything is energy and we're all connected, essentially everything's the same damn fucking thing when you break it down. And if we all have an origin, which we need to, of course, source, consciousness, God, whatever name you want to give to it, that is where we all come from. But we're not separate from it. We're extensions of it because science proves we have to be. Right? We're all fingers on the hand of the same God, so to speak. And this brings up one of my favorite proverbs I've ever heard. And it's an indigenous one that says, because we're all branches on the same tree of God, so to speak, there's not a tree stupid enough whose branches fight amongst each other. But here the fuck we are. But
Mm.
only because we forgot, as intended. Again, we take on that amnesia. We forget in order to remember. But my brothers and sisters watching and listening, fuck me, it's time to remember.
Yes. Amen to that. Yeah, it's all inside of us. The only way out, as the saying goes, is in.
Is in. Mm,
Yeah, I love that.
absolutely.
And again, I try and get this across just about on every single podcast is like, we're not taught to sit with feelings, to sit with emotion, to sit with anything. It's like there's a pill for that, you know,
Oh yeah, a
uh,
pill for that, or a
a
substance
drink,
for that,
a
or an
drink.
action for that, or
Yeah.
having sex can be an addiction,
Yeah.
shopping, whatever, Netflix binge watching.
Yeah.
Instead of binge watching Netflix, people need to binge watch their mind and what's going on in there.
Yeah.
And for my fellow men out there, man, I mean, men, as far as the ability to feel, because the only way to heal is to deal and feel. All right, deal, feel, heal. That's a big part of what I teach. But us men, we live in a world that's essentially taught us, shut the fuck up, pussy. You're not allowed to feel, right? And you're damn sure not allowed to express it. That's why you have so much toxic masculinity in this world. I mean, the religious God we've been taught about is a fucking toxic masculine,
Oh, so
right?
right.
Vengeful, controlling, fucking all the shit nobody would ever want,
Yeah.
right? And then that creates toxic femininity because all these women need to create their own kind of toxic masculinity within themselves to protect themselves from toxic males, and then the cycle continues.
So true. And
But then there's good men out there who show up to damage women and they're pushed away and treated like they were the ones that hurt the female. And again, this just vicious cycle of unnecessary protection from what no longer happening just ensues
and
and
that
keeps us separated, which is what they want.
exactly. But now I really truly believe is the time where men and women take personal responsibility for healing those portions of
We have to. No one else can do it. Like I like to say, our trauma can never be our fault, but healing it can only be our responsibility,
Mhm. And I
like
think
it's supposed to be.
exactly, exactly. I really think people are talking about, the return of Christ. And I think that time
Oh
is
God,
upon
man.
us now, but what it is a return of the consciousness,
That's
right?
exactly what it is.
Which
I
is,
mean, pardon the pun, but goddamn that whole second coming concept. But you're right, and Jesus taught it. It's not about Jesus coming back. If you're gonna wait for Jesus to come back, you're gonna be fucking wait forever, literally.
yeah,
It's about the awakening of Christ consciousness within humanity, and
exactly.
then living it out, which essentially is kindness, love. And when I say kindness, that doesn't mean airy fairy nice. Watch out for nice people, especially nice guys. Jeffrey Dahmer was a nice fucking guy,
Okay.
right? We don't need nice men, nice guys. We need good men.
Mm, mm,
Good men have the balls to get angry in the face of injustice.
mm,
Good men will fight for the good, will protect the
mm,
women and children. The example Spirit likes to have me make is if you have a child and they're running out into traffic, are you going to be like, oh no, honey, don't, please don't, please don't? You're going to get your fucking ass over here.
yeah,
Well, what are you doing? You're saving their life. That's pretty fucking kind. Were you nice about it? Fuck no, but it doesn't call for niceness.
yeah,
Would we all love to be nice all the time? Absolutely. No one would, in their right mind, would choose conflict or aggression over peace and niceness any day, but it's whatever is necessary in the situation. Life is not black and white, anywhere near black and white. It's a big, beautiful, fucked up gray area.
mm,
And what allows us to act properly or accurately in the moment is fucking self awareness and consciousness and healing trauma. So we're never coming at the present from a toxic consciousness. Presence, it's what it fucking is. Healing is what it is. And that brings us to love. The more we bring ourselves to love, the more loving world we'll have. 1 + 1 still fucking equals 2, you
right.
know? And what doesn't equal love is fear plus fear plus fear plus fear plus fear. No matter how you spin it, fear plus fear equals fucking fear.
Mm,
All right. And trauma plus trauma equals more trauma.
yeah.
We
There's
just
one
need love, man. All
message
we really do need is love, like the Beatles said.
so true. And that's, the message I want to get out to our brothers and sisters, especially like I think those of us out here looking for love, right? It's like find it in yourself first, right? Because then you become that radio signal that attracts someone like minded or like energetic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aligns with it. Absolutely. Because the vibrational alignment is there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And you know what? You were so bang on because this is my time. I've gotten that message myself that if I were to meet someone right now, it would be a distraction for me. I'm really supposed to be focusing on this. So,
Yeah. It'd be more than a distraction. It'd be a fucking disaster, is what it would be, because it would
yeah,
have to be to make sure you're not doing it for very long to make it a distraction. Right.
exactly.
Yeah. And thanks for the props. But again, it's Spirit that was banging on. I
Yeah.
just opened up my big mouth.
Spirit's always bang on, isn't
It
it?
always really fucking is. Yeah. We don't always listen, myself included.
Mm,
I go through my own human process, but they're always right. They're always fucking right.
agreed. Well, Dan, I could just, riff with you for hours and hours and hours. I would love
Likewise, sister.
and getting to know you a little bit. So just before I let you go, can you let our audience know where they can find you? I know you talked about your appearance here in Calgary on the 10th.
Yeah, March 10th, Calgary, Holiday Inn Calgary South Conference Center on McLeod, I believe. But there's a big ass tour happening. So you can follow me on my socials, Dan King Soulgasm on Facebook, Dan King Soulgasm on Instagram, or on my website, iamdanking.com. And if anybody wants to book a session, they could do so through those same channels.
Awesome. Love it.
Yeah.
Have a great day, Dan, and thanks again
You
for
have a soulgasmic day, Shauna. Thanks for having me. It was an
I will do
absolute
that.
blast. And love your vibe. Felt at home. Thank you.
Stay well.
You too. Vibes up.